Ready, I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Clark County Board of Education for September 2017. I'd like to welcome everyone who's with us this evening. Let's go ahead and stand and observe a moment of silence. Now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first item of business is adoption of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? If not, a motion is in order to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Peridot.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next up is approval of minutes for the August 15th 2017 regular meeting and the August 31st tax hearing and the August 31st special meeting. All five of us were present at all of those meetings, so any changes or corrections?
On the August 15th minutes, there was a typo, which I believe that Mrs. Nance has corrected. It said the tax rate in motion 211 was listed as 64%, and I believe it should simply be 64 cents. And I believe she's already corrected that. And then I have a correction for the August 31 minutes. Do you want me to link that in also?
Sure.
Okay. On the August 31 minutes, motion number 228 referred to a tax rate of 0.62. It should be 0.622.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. Any other changes? If not, a motion is in order to approve the minutes as amended for August 15th, August 31st, and August 31st, 2017.
Well, I'd like to make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Heisel,
Second.
second by Mr. Parrott. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And staff recognition, Mr. Christie.
Okay, first off, I want to recognize Ms. Janet Brown and her staff of Strode Station Elementary School. The Kentucky Department of Education recognized 10 Kentucky public schools for outstanding teaching and learning conditions. These Winner's Circle schools were recognized for their effective teaching and school leadership practices, which will be shared as models of best practices across the state. The Winner's Circle schools were selected based upon the results of the 2017 Teaching, Empowering, Leading, and Learning, that's the TEL survey, which was administered to all public school teachers and principals in March of this year. Commissioner Pruitt, he said, "My congratulations to all of our 2017 TEL Kentucky Winner's Circle schools. With their participation, these schools have discovered that the power to unlock information on critical teaching and learning conditions and harness it as part of the ongoing improvement of the planning process. Research has proven that time and time again, working conditions have a direct impact on the learning conditions for students. By effectively using the information gathered, the entire school shares ownership in improving the school culture, student success, and its ability to close the achievement gap. During the Continuous Improvement Summit, Strode Station received a certificate and a 4-foot by 6-foot banner to hang at their school. And they're recognized as one of only 10 in the state of Kentucky. So congratulations to that group. This is Danielle. Here. There she is. The National Board Certification is the teaching profession's mark of accomplished practice. The more than 112,000 teachers who have achieved board certification demonstrate their ability to teach to professionals' highest standards. Danielle Ward, a facilitator in Clark County, recently joined 271 of the most accomplished teachers across the United States. In Chicago, Illinois, to help set the national board performance standards across the 25 certificate areas. Standard setting is a research-based process for establishing a performance standard that indicates accomplished teaching. So congratulations. Thank you very much.
Oh, it worked. I'm trying, back there. Get back up here. that greatness?
Greatness.
And our next recognition tonight, I'll ask Mr. Chris Parker with Winchester Insurance if he'll come up. I think he's going to announce the winners. We're recognizing our bus drivers, and I think there was a total of 17 drivers, and he'll tell you exactly what they're being recognized for, and we have some certificates and some pins for them. We
Yes.
appreciate the work that our bus drivers do every day, and at night, too. A lot of nights, too.
Yes, yes. This is part of, we're calling it a Driver Recognition Award. This is part of a plan that Mr. Christie, Mr. Nichols, Mr. Stoff, Mr. Fisher, and myself have worked on the past few years. We saw a trend developing a couple of years ago, too many bus accidents that were very preventable. So in the past 5 years, we have had 58 bus accidents that were our fault. Those claims have totaled nearly $800,000 in paid insurance claims. That is far more than the premium that we've paid. And so to get this down, we thought the first thing we're going to do is look at every accident that occurs. Something happens, we're going to review that thing. As soon as the police report comes into Danny, we call a meeting of the Accident Review Committee. Mr. Rourke is on there, Michelle and Bruce from the bus garage, and Mr. Nichols. We all meet. We go through what happened. We talk to the driver, and then we make a recommendation to Mr. Christie, or we don't do anything. Since we have done that, in the first year we did that, our accidents dropped from 16 in 2015 to 16 school year to 8 last year. To cut the accidents in half is a big deal. And that was not by getting new drivers. That was not by getting new buses. That was by shedding a little bit of light on what happened and saying, somebody's paying attention. So the second part of paying attention is recognizing the people that are doing well. And so that's what we want to do tonight. So tonight, we've got 17 drivers that have been at least 3 years with the schools and have a clean driving record with us. I don't know what they're doing out in their personal cars, but that's okay. In the buses, 3 years, no accidents. And so 17 drivers have qualified for this. I hope to do this every year. I think as long as we keep seeing results, I want to keep doing it. And what they're getting tonight is a little pin that says 3 years safe driving award on it. It's got a little school bus. And then I've got a little packet here. There's a farmer's almanac for next year, a calendar, and a $25 gift card to a gas station. So, and
You can use that in your bus if you'd like.
He said gas.
no, you can't.
No, you can't. You're right. Good point.
So unless there's any questions or comments about what we're doing, I'll go ahead and start announcing. And if you're here, just come on up and let's get this. Elizabeth Clark. Fred Cornett.
Hey, Fred, yeah.
Fred, turn the radio on. Good. There you go. Oh, now you got Zephyr.
Hey, here. Yes, sir.
Good job. Did you take it? Let's get her. All right.
How's it going?
Harold Deering.
Congratulations.
Allison Esler. Michael Michael Hensley. Teresa Hollingsworth. Bill Hunt. Beth Kagan. Sure. Rebecca Lopez. Nellie Lumpkins. Laura McCord, Charlotte Nalen, all right, Tracy Neely. James Nolan. Rhonda Ratliff. Yep. All right. Bill Rawlings. And the bus driver representative on our accident review committee, Jim Rourks.
Mr. Christie, get in the picture. All right, say cheese. Cheese. Good job.
All right. Everybody go home. I got the phone. Everybody go home. I got the phone. Get to bed.
Thank you, Chris.
I appreciate the job they're doing. I'm up very early these days, and I see them when they're out starting their routes and out and about when it's good and pitch black, so I appreciate the job that they're doing. Thank you. No one's signed in for public comments. Next item is Superintendent's Report, Mr. Christie.
A few things to mention here quickly tonight. First off, I'd like to recognize, and she isn't here, she's already at her first school function. Ms. Kara Davies was selected to serve as the principal of the Clark County Preschool this past week, and she's already at a function tonight. They're hosting the Toyota Born Learning Program, and she'll probably be in a little later this evening. The Henry Baker Intermediate School Library has been chosen to be a 2017 grant recipient from the Steele Reese Foundation in the amount of $30,000. The Steele Reese grant is intended to purchase books to meet the needs of our students reading below grade level. Special Education had the mindfulness training for the B project on August the 11th. We trained 97 district staff members, that was regular and special education teachers, on the mindfulness curriculum. Model classrooms in each school have been chosen. Work is continuing and showing great promise. Model classroom support started last week. Teachers are sharing that it's helping with self-regulation and emotional control in their classrooms. The migrant program, the migrant education, will be offering free English classes for the community, anyone in the community, starting the week of September the 11th. For the beginning of the 2017-18 school year, 17 incoming kindergarten and first semester, first grade ELs have been given the English language proficiency screener. KDE is still revising the assessment. We got some information on Friday, or Monday, and it was changed again on Friday, so we're still kind of holding up on some things there as we move toward the public release of the data. There are a few key dates for you to remember. September the 21st will be the virtual briefing for the release of the data at 2 p.m. September the 25th, the embargoed data will go to the district, schools, and the working media. September 28th, public reporting. And then September 29th through October 9th, changes. And then again, data review following the public reporting in case anything comes up there that needs to be changed at that point. All site-based council members, new and experienced, have been officially, they've completed their training this last week. Next week, we'll be having the first homecoming parade. I say first, it's first since I've been here. I don't know if eventually, I guess maybe years ago, I don't know if they had them or not, but we're having our football homecoming parade is scheduled for September the 28th. That's Thursday night at 7 p.m. If there's no rain, that'll happen downtown. All schools will be represented in the parade with students and staff, with the football team as the grand marshal of the parade. Our preschool will be having a safety audit that will be conducted on September 21st, Kentucky School Safety. The district and school accreditation is still on for the week of November the 5th. Preparing, getting ready for that. September the 27th at 6 p.m. we have met with Dr. Alvarado, Senator Alvarado, along with a couple other superintendents, went to Frankfurt to meet with him, and out of that, he agreed to come to Clark County to do a kind of a question and answer thing. So we've partnered up with Montgomery County, and we're going to be hosting it here at the high school auditorium on September the 27th at 6 o'clock, where he will talk with all the staff who wish to attend from both of those counties about the pension crisis that we're looking at now and where he sees it going from there. So that's again 6 o'clock. Then the GRC Career Fair is set for September the 29th. That's all I have.
Okay. Next up is item number 4 in the Student Learning and Instructional Services. Mr. Holland, first month enrollment update.
First month attendance, we'll take a look at it. Kudos and congratulations, Justice Elementary. I think we get this. It's a good percentage, by the way. We always strive to get for whatever we can that's over 95. When we get something that's over 97 for a month like that, very strong. And several of the schools showed strong attendance in month 1 as well. The district average for month 1, running August 16th through September 6th, was 95.25.
Okay.
And I believe Mr. Elliott, down below there, I believe there is a,
Down below this?
yeah, I believe towards the end, unless yours is different than mine, there should be one for staff as well. We were able
Don't have
to
that.
sneak it in there. It's not in there?
No.
When I looked at it today, it was at the very bottom, at the last one, but I mean, that may be something that's different from what you see than what I see.
Right there.
Oh, there it is.
There we go. All right. And as we take a look, this is something that's never happened, and they hounded me nonstop to see if they were involved in this. I'm just kidding. Kudos to the preschool because they had never been involved with this. So kudos to Mr. Stumpin and the staff there and Christy Bush and all of them that were looking to make sure that their school was included in this. They always are. And so kudos to them. Very impressively for the days to start their first month, 99.22%. So I think that they were probably razzing the one person that missed 2 hours through the course of the day or something. So that's very strong attendance there.
This is a public hearing concerning tax rates of the Clark County Board of Education.
This thing has a mind of its own.
All right, any questions, Mr. Holland?
Joining us this evening. Everyone stand up for a moment of silence.
All right. Let's see, next up on number 5, Comprehensive District Improvement Plan. Checks, Brenda Considine.
Good evening. You have, it's quite a lengthy document, and
But it's not as lengthy as it used to be.
no, it's not. And I will tell you that I hope you're not happy with this format because it is changing. This will be the last time you see this rollout looking like this. For the implementation and impact checks, it's listed under progress notes. And so you've had time to look at them. Does anybody have any questions or comments about them? It kind of just lets you know some of the things that we worked on. Some things are always going to be in progress. Some things we do finally get to close out and get some data on. Others will spiral around for quite some time.
Right.
Have we received the data on everything that's reported in here? It says we did 3 assessments or however many assessments. Has the board already received all of that data prior in other reports to the board?
If it's map data, yes. But if it's like 3 assessments for I'm not sure what you're referencing.
Oh, I had it, but I don't have my little sheet note with me. It says conducted assessments at 3 different times. On
Do you know
reading
which
and
goal it
math.
is?
Um,
Oh, so it's on,
It's on reading and-
reading and
both reading
math.
and math.
Okay.
But it doesn't say anything about what the results were,
Were.
what was the impact, how do we know what happened?
Okay. Let me see if I can locate that and figure it out. I would think if we did 3 assessments, it would probably have something to do with, I mean, at the district level, it would be math.
Okay.
We would not be reporting on benchmark assessments that schools would be doing, and I don't think, unless we included that in here.
3.5 days, probably.
So, can I get back with you on that?
But a number of them, you know, the things are in progress, but it says we met and we discussed these sorts of assessments.
Right.
And we had training on this. Okay, what's the result of that? Where does that show up in student achievement?
Well, it should show up in your scores, because if we're successful and we're always monitoring our curriculum and instruction, and we are constantly making changes so that we are providing the best education, the overall goal would be that your scores improve.
But the score reporting doesn't show in this
No,
document.
no. This is pretty much the activities that we do, and then hopefully next month when we come back, we will have some data
Right.
that will prove that some of these activities were successful.
It would be good to
Right.
get to have that side by side. and
Well, and I think in the new document that Katie's rolling out, they will be more side by side. Yeah, but not right now. This is a very cumbersome database. It's not very user-friendly. And what we do is we go in and we type in progress notes. So it doesn't really ever go back, and it's not tied to anything. There's no completion. I mean,
So
it's
time for
cumbersome.
that format
Yeah.
to change.
It's a compliance. It's not really a living, breathing document, and that's why we're moving away from Assist and going to a new platform.
That was my next question. What's this going to look like next year?
It's going to be called eProve, and eProve, P-R-O-V-E, like a small e, capital P-R-O-V-E. It's through Advanced Ed. They still have the contract with it. And we've seen little snippets of it the last 2 days, and it's going to not look like this at all, is what we're told. It's not live yet, but as soon as it goes live, we can probably show you in a meeting so you can kind of have an idea. All the dates have changed. Our Closing the Achievement Gap that we always talk about by October 1st is now rolled back to January 1. The school improvement plans, the district improvement plans are a January 1 due date as well. So what we're getting ready to do the month of October is a needs assessment at every building level for curriculum. Not what do we need, but how are we doing in our building. So that's the next step that we're getting ready to embark on. But I would love to be able to share more with you, but we don't have it yet. It's we're once again building the plane as we begin to fly it. It's always fun when we do things like that.
It's the way things are in Sauer Boulevard, in fact.
Yes, it is. So I hope this gives you a glimpse to some of the things that, and I'm going to be honest, what we heard today is less is more. What they would really like for us to do is get away from a 195-page document. I mean, they want you to really prioritize and go with things that you can really do, monitor, that's going to make a difference in student achievement. They think that school districts try to do too many activities, and we kind of lose sight of them. We juggle all of those different activities. And then at the very end, which one did we get the most success for? Well, we don't know because we were doing 25 of them. So I do look for a streamlined and prioritizing.
And at some point, well, I don't know if at some point if this happens, but when we get data, do we have any method of associating a particular activity with this resulting score?
You could, if that is the only thing that you used, or the only activity that you used to influence that. But the problem with education is that we have so many different things that we do to improve reading.
Right.
It's not
Which
just one
intervention
thing.
worked, yeah.
Right, and you don't really know which one can you actually hang your hat on and said, this was it. Now, if we just stripped it down and we did one program and we did it with fidelity and we didn't bring anything else in, then we could probably go back to that. But your master teachers aren't going to do that.
Right.
I pulled from everything
Well, I'm
because
thinking particularly of the facilitator positions that we implemented last year. You know, how do we know how those worked?
Right.
Because, you know.
what data did you get back? You're welcome.
Other questions to Ms. Considine on the CDIP? Okay, moving on to the MAP Insight Report.
Yes, this is a new report that we have purchased extra, and it is strictly for board presentations. And if you look at it, we didn't get it, they didn't roll it out until July. So I'm just now getting it to you. But it really breaks down some of the questions that you may have had regarding MAP. I felt for me, some of the highlights is that it really looked at growth. It kind of gave us a snapshot over the 3 years instead of me bringing that lovely rainbow. It kind of did some comparison. It also looked at how, if you look at particular schools that were seeing high achievement but low growth, those are conversations that we need to talk about. Students are performing high, but they're really not growing. They're just kind of stagnant. So I think and I have not shared this yet with the principals, but this is something that I'll roll out to them in our next meeting and we can talk about it. But it has to happen at the end of the year, so you will get it probably in May of next year. And it'll provide some extra information just regarding MAP.
One of the comments, or part of that review said that we had no schools that had low achievement and low growth. But in the chart, that's based on the color coding.
We did.
We did have low achievement and low growth. So I don't understand the difference between the stated, the
Right.
statement that was made and the graphic documentation. The audio didn't match the video.
Right, it doesn't, because it says no schools, but then it goes on to kind of give you an idea. And if you think about it, they were looking at a 50th percentile. So maybe the school was performing or starting to show growth, and therefore they did not state low growth. I don't really know what they're basing
Well,
low growth.
the percentiles, or percentages, I'm sorry, were 46 and 42.
Okay, so it's above 40, and 40 in our state is growth. It's our percentile for growth. Now, that's changing. That's
50 percentile doesn't mean anything anymore.
No, it's 40. 40.
Race to the bottom, folks. That's where we are. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
It's changing. We don't know, I don't think it's going to be an arbitrary number like it has been. 40% has been around 4 years as growth compared to their peers. Okay? So if you were 39%, you did not have growth. But if you were 40 or 41%, then you showed growth. And so since we were above the 40, and they're probably working with the Department of Ed on this at Kentucky to produce this report. You're welcome. Got a question in there, Mr. Heisel?
I thought it was interesting to see how we compare, because this compares us against the nation.
It is nice, because with K-Prep,
So-
we compare
Because
ourselves.
for years, we've been looking at this as a tool, basically comparing grade to grade,
Mhm.
and school to school. So, and it's interesting to say, okay, this is a tool that we can compare ourselves to.
So you like the report?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
it's helpful,
good.
so. And I think it does correlate with our state assessment scores.
does.
at the end of the year. So, because we've always wondered, how well does that correlate? And
It'll
5
be
years ago, the
interesting.
answer was, we don't know, kind of, sort of, maybe. And,
Yeah, we guess that, we'd like to think it did, but
okay.
we can probably go back and reference this next week.
Yes, so. Yes, that's kind of a sneak preview. actually. So, okay. All right, any other questions from Ms. Considine? All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Next up is private school appropriations with Ms. Whitesides.
The times they are a-changing. We've heard that for the last 2 days. And as you know, I brought the district assurances for the federal grants to you last month. Well, this month, I am bringing to you the information about private school appropriations for Title II and IDEA B, or Title III. And Title II, we have one school which will participate. St. Agatha will participate with Title II, and that is teacher quality and leader quality. They will receive $3,056.30 through our Title II funds. And if they choose to purchase any resources or any consultants, they have to do that through us. They will be, we will be doing the POs for them, and they will use that money for professional development and professional learning for their teachers. For St. Agatha and Calvary Christian, they receive speech pass services and occupational services through our IDEA B. And this is just to let you know and make you stay informed of what's happening.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Any questions, Ms. Whitesides? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Move on to item number 8, under student support services. Consider approval to adopt an updated 04.312 school activity funds policy and create 04.61 gift grant or devise policy. Ms. Ellis.
Okay, so back in, I believe it was April, we brought you an adjustment to the booster agreement. We changed a few items on it. And this is housekeeping to update the school activity funds policy that also refers to that booster agreement and items in it. You received a copy of that. So we are just changing the language to match that booster agreement that had been approved.
And how about the new policy?
And sending this policy to KSBA, their recommendation in adding the donation language, which was a recommendation by our Red Book training that we had, that we also, they devised the new gift grant and devise policy recommended. So that was from KSBA's recommendation that we include that as a new policy.
Questions for Ms. Ellis or discussion?
In item 2A, it talks about requiring bank statements, and it seems to imply that that's just for the first of the year. And we might want to tweak the wording on that so it's clear that the different booster organizations should provide bank statements for each month during the year.
That can be done. The booster agreement does state specifically that they have to sign and turn in every year, that they have to turn in monthly statements with images. So it is, I guess, more clear in the booster agreement that it's not just first of the year, that it is a monthly requirement. And we have started receiving those on a monthly basis now since we approved the new booster agreement. But that can be updated to your specifications.
Okay.
If you want that worded a little different.
What would you suggest?
There in 2, it says within the first 30 days,
Every 30 days.
and then probably something like, and then continuing for the balance of the year after that. Do you want to policy?
Word it there now, we'll get it.
All righty.
But then we need to when you make the motion, if you make a motion to approve this with the revised wording. Before you approve it, just revise the wording.
All right, well, let me be
So I would
very-
say within the first 30 days of the school year, within 30 days of the first transaction for the group, and monthly subsequently.
First 30 days, or within 30 days.
Is that your intent?
Yes, and, or for the balance of the year. Yes, so, and then, I think then use wording, and then for the balance of the year. Does that imply that they would turn it in each month?
Not unless you say turn it in each month.
So you just put it
Well,
there.
under, once we get
Within
to
the first
A,
30
it
within-
talks about what needs to be turned in.
Okay, I believe that the revised wording needs to occur in item number 2 before you get to A and B.
Right, that's where we were fishing.
Okay, so within the first 30 days of the school year, or within 30 days of the first transaction, I would change he to thee there, that, in that
Yes,
area.
so we,
Of the first transaction for the group, and each month following the monthly statement with check images and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
I think you just need to add after the, for the group and each month following through the duration of the school year. Or is it a school year or a fiscal
Yes.
year or?
School year.
Okay.
Okay. Any other suggested changes or discussion? Motion is in order to approve revisions to 04.312 as presented and amended, and to approve new policy 04.61 as presented.
I move that we adopt the updated 04.312 school activity funds policy as amended, and as well as adopt the newly created 04.61 gift, grant, or devise policy as presented.
Motion by Ms. Hicks. Second by Mr. Perry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. So we'll need to bring that back next month for second reading. Okay. Next up is item number 9, consider approval of traditional bank balance being secured in the Promontory Interfinancial Network. Ms. Ellis.
So we're requesting consideration to enter into the Promontory Interfinancial Network, and Mr. Hendricks and Ms. Jefferson from Traditional Bank are here to kind of give a brief overview of what this program is and how it works and how it differs from how we are currently secured. So we'll come up and explain that to you.
Hi, I'm Sarah Jefferson. I'm in cash management at Traditional Bank, and this is Mike Hendricks, the CFO. So we just want to kind of explain the product that we're asking for consideration on, and you all should each have a packet on your desk. Back in 2004, Promontory developed a product called Cedars, and Cedars was a way for an individual or corporations or nonprofits or municipalities to federally insure more than $250,000. Historically, if a person, well, back then it was $100,000. If you had more than $100,000, you had to invest those funds at different FDIC institutions to be insured. In 2008, Promontory developed a product called Insured Cash Sweep, which Traditional Bank adopted, and that allows us to still have a relationship with our client and farm the money out in less than $250,000 increments. Today, we have several customers using this product that are nonprofits, municipalities, and just for-profit clients. Promontory was developed in like 2002, and some of the members that developed the product were Eugene Ludwig, who was a former U.S. Comptroller of Currency, Alan Blinder, former Vice Chairman of the Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve, and Mark Jacobson, the former Chief of Staff of the FDIC. So basically what this product does is it allows you to bank with our bank and have one statement, one rate, and still have complete FDIC insurance. You can skip a couple of slides, but the next one, please. And it kind of shows you in that diagram, we are your custodian, and then we farm that out in less than $250,000 increments. So you work directly with us, and all terms and conditions are basically the same. Many managers of public funds do utilize this. Promontory has 3,000 banks across the nation that participate in CEDARS, and you have to be a well-capitalized bank to be in the program. Since 1933, there hasn't been a bank that hasn't honored FDIC coverage, so unless there was a catastrophe in the FDIC system in which all of us would be in trouble, the program is proven to work. So the difference is, historically, the only way that banks have been able to ensure those funds are by placing our securities in your name for collateral. And so I think that's why we're here today, is just to propose an alternative to securing those funds using the FDIC versus our securities. So I'm open for questions if I've covered everything that you think I should. The last page is kind of a statement, and it kind of shows you you can exclude banks. So if you have money at other banks, you can say don't place any money there, and actually ICS has a mechanism to know whether you have funds at that other bank or not, as to not put you over the FDIC limit. And then it will list the number of banks in which your funds are and how much balance is in that. And so it automatically does that through this matching program that they have. Any questions?
Can you tell us a little bit more about the risks and benefits and why we should be doing this and not what we've been doing before?
So the risks are, with the collateralized agreement, you are at 103% as to try to cushion your deposits, but there is a market rate risk there because those are changed daily. So there could be, again, if there was a catastrophe and the bank closed and we had to renew these agreements, depending on the market rates, there's a risk with the collateral agreements. Alternatively, with FDIC, again, the bank would have to close and the FDIC would have to kick in, and that's what the risk could be. This is truly just an alternative way to secure those funds. There is along with reporting, you're supposed to be monitoring your pledging requirements as well, so that can become cumbersome to see, really see how much money we have pledged to your accounts, whereas you get a nice little statement every month and it outlines that. I know that the auditors that have worked with other school systems that we provide this service for are comfortable with the ICS and CEDARS product. Did I answer your question? Okay.
I guess just to recap, the rate is at 15 basis points over.
I think it's 25 basis points over Fed funds. 15 basis points over. I didn't bring that with me.
I'll take the 25, but I thought it was.
I can't remember.
I think it was.
We
I thought
went back
it
and looked at the RFP, and it was 25
basis points over Fed funds.
So just to confirm, so it's 25 basis points over
Fed fund
funds.
rate.
So currently, Fed funds are 1.25%. So you're basically getting 1.5%. And obviously, if Fed funds moves up or down, your rate goes up and down automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Adjusted to that floor, but I think it was a floor of 1%, so it won't go lower than 1%. Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of the March submission that you all did to respond to our RFP, this is compliant with that. There's nothing of this change in structure that would indicate that we're doing anything different. It's already provided within that.
I spoke with our auditor who was here last week just to confirm, and he also works with another district who is in the Promontory network, and the compliance there is with KRS 66.480, and he says what they look at is that we are just 100% secured by either FDIC insurance or securities based on how our money is invested. That's the compliance issue. Our bonded depository does state the 103% up to, but again, that's because of the fluctuation in the market to ensure that we are in compliance with the KRS at the 100%.
And we'll stay at the 103% even within this different structure? Or
It would
we'll
be
go to
dollar
100%?
for dollar, yeah,
Okay.
dollar for dollar.
All right, so that'll
Yeah, it'd
be-
be 100%.
And so should that result in higher interest for us or the same? Is that on you all in terms of the 103% versus 100%?
That's the, go ahead.
Yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with the interest rates.
That's essentially going to help you all out. And then I think when you all proposed this back in March,
It helps us.
you anticipated this, right?
It's not a financial windfall for us. I mean, it costs us money both ways. Really, for us, it's a liquidity issue on our balance sheet. Frees our securities up. for other investments.
But it certainly will make Alicia's job much more easier because, you know, currently, I think she mentioned the fact that every time we substitute pledging security, she gets a piece of paper that she has to keep.
Like a stack of paper.
Keep for her auditors, and
Yeah.
as Sarah indicated, she now will get one monthly statement that shows every bank in the network that has got for the money.
Let me propose this. I think that before you take action on this, you ought to do a side-by-side comparison of your agreement that you have with traditional bank now and this cash sweep agreement that I suspect has been circulated. I don't know if you've seen it. But I think what the ICS agreement says is that you get the interest rate that's being paid by the destination institution and not this Fed rate plus. I mean, I'm not sure, but I think that's the way I read it.
We will guarantee the rate of Fed funds plus 25 basis points. Promontory automatically they don't match rate rate for rate. Am I approaching that correctly?
If we're paying our customer 25 basis points over Fed funds, but other banks where this money is residing at $250,000, they're paying their customers in some other rate. But Promontory, through the computer they've got, goes in there and says, either we owe somebody money or they owe us money, but at any point in time, Clark County's still getting the 25 basis points over Fed funds.
And again, I'm not trying to interfere, and I'm just trying to make it plain, and I'm not certain without some written language somewhere that says that your agreement is going to be rock solid. I think the ICS agreement says one thing. I think the traditional bank agreement says something different. I believe what Mr. Hendricks is saying is true, but I don't know if any place that you can point to in writing later and say that traditional bank has guaranteed that rate in light of the fact that you've entered into this ICS agreement that says that you knew that you were only going to get the interest rate that the destination institution was going to pay. So I think there is conflicting language that has to be reconciled, and I think it can be done easily.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be happy to put something in writing that through the term of the RFP that we would continue to honor that rate. I don't think that that's an issue. A supplement to the ICS agreement that we would guarantee that rate for the term of the RFP.
Yeah, and I'm certain that Promontory's legal team would be able to put something together that would suffice, that.
The only other thing that I think is of concern is that as I read the ICS agreement, it says that if for any reason that we terminate our agreement, that our cash, your cash, at the destination institution becomes yours under your name and you're to deal directly with that institution as opposed to traditional bank. And so I think that because traditional bank has a arm's length agreement with this district to manage their funds, I think that needs to be addressed too, to make sure that it's not, that we're not left trying to recover money abroad from a destination institution if the ICS agreement falls apart.
Well, you wouldn't be dealing with the institution, basically you'd be dealing with the FDIC.
Well, but the ICS agreement says in writing that, you can terminate, or ICS can terminate the agreement under certain circumstances with 30 days notice, that the district can terminate the agreement with 30 days notice. But if these things happen, then the money that's on deposit with some bank in Des Moines, for all we know, becomes the property of the district, but it's up to us to retrieve it. And I don't think that's the agreement we have with traditional bank right now. I think right now it'd be traditional bank's responsibility to give it back to us.
Well, I can't really speak to that, to be honest with you, but.
Well, it says what it says. I mean, if you read it, that's what it says.
So you're saying that if Clark County wanted to discontinue this product?
With ICS, right.
That Clark County would have to do something with the bank where the money resides?
That's what the agreement says.
So
what I'm saying is what the agreement says.
Yeah, so I think the agreement is we're the custodian of it on your behalf. So if you all were to exit the agreement, it automatically sweeps back into your checking account. We would cancel the sweep and it comes back into your checking account.
And again, I don't have a vote here, I'm just
Sure.
suggesting that's
Well,
not
and
what
it-
the writing says.
Okay, so maybe what we can do is get Promontory's legal team to speak with the board or put something in writing,
Or
however.
Mr. Elkins.
I mean, it seemed practical to me, the FDIC insurance seemed like it would benefit, but then I don't deal with the value of it, just the legality of it.
Sure.
It seemed problematic to me for the board to take on this new responsibility to have to retrieve its money when it currently has an agreement that wouldn't leave them in that situation.
I think and I understand from your perspective, you're reading the agreement, but I think a lot of scenarios would have to happen. The bank would have to fail, or FDIC would have to fail before you all would be responsible for retrieving your funds from Destination Insurance, because they don't even know you as a customer. You're assigned a customer number. So it's not like that they know that the Bank of Des Moines has, Clark County's money.
Well, but we could potentially be talking about big money.
Sure,
Millions of dollars.
sure.
Millions of dollars.
Sure.
And the agreement that I saw didn't limit this occasion to those circumstances where the bank had closed, FDIC had failed. It left open the possibility for the district to discontinue its agreement at any time with written notice within 30 days. And it also left the other contracting party the ability to do that too. And there didn't appear to be very many limitations. So it wouldn't require an institution closing or FDIC failing before we could have money left abroad that we would have to try to recover under the terms of that agreement. So I'm just speaking of what I read, not what I think personally.
Absolutely.
Mr. Elkins, do you think it's possible for you to develop a document in conjunction with the folks at Traditional Bank that would specifically have them take various responsibilities on that would supersede this and give us that guarantee, and would still be compliant with the terms of the RFP that was agreed to back in March?
I think it's very simply done this way, that we just have a written agreement that says that our current agreement, based on RFP, supersedes any differences with the ICS agreement with respect to our relationship with Traditional Bank.
Do you think it's something we could approve this change and then have you develop that to add to it, or do we have to come back at a subsequent meeting?
Because of the money that's involved, I'd be afraid to handle it that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think everything needs to be laid out in writing, so. And that's the thought, I mean, this is not our money.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This is the public's money.
And again,
We have to be that much more careful.
certainly add to the fact that Clark County is obviously not our first district that's put money through this program. And obviously there's districts all over the United States that are putting money into this program. Currently, we have 4 districts with over a total of $84 million currently in this program. And obviously it's been approved by our regulators. They've been in here since we got into this. Our regulators know this program inside and out, the FDIC. So we certainly had confidence in the program. And going back to your comment, I mean, in millions of dollars, you'd have to have every bank out there that $250,000 is placed with before you start talking about millions. And, we haven't had a bank fail in probably the last 3 or 4 years out there. And certainly you can go through another crisis like we had. But as, Sarah alluded to, the FDIC has never, had to not pay pay anybody for losing money.
But, and I want you to know that I'm not shopping for value here. That means nothing to me. That's for the board to decide. But the language in the 2 agreements conflict with each other, even in the plainest reading. And that was the issue I had with it. I'm sure you can reconcile it, or we can reconcile it together, but because they said different things, I just couldn't see the board being in both agreements and expecting to be able to enforce one against the other.
And would you be willing to let the attorneys at Promontory, speak with you, and you can ask those questions to them?
I mean, I work for the board.
Right.
Exactly. But, I think they certainly said that they would be willing to talk to you and answer your questions, and so we can arrange that.
We would be happy to have you do that, Mr. Elkins. At least I would. Can I speak for anyone?
So the game plan would be, Mr. Elkins is going to research this a little bit more, then we'll bring this back at a subsequent meeting.
All right.
Yeah, one thing, it's just a matter of reconciling what the two agreements say. I 100% believe the money will be safe as they've suggested, but I think the control of the money, the provisions in our agreement that we have with traditional bank one-on-one, is a little bit different than the agreement that we could be getting into in this ICS agreement.
I have a question, but I'm not finding the document. Do we have a cash position report anymore? Because didn't our cash position report used to have at the bottom, X dollars or millions of dollars are on deposit with X bank? Okay, are those dollars not insured?
They are. They're collateralized with high-grade bonds, basically. The bank's own securities that we own that are placed in your name and held with a third party. So those are held with a third party as well in your name.
All of our funds on deposit with any bank have securities.
Okay, but this 250,000 was.
You couldn't reconcile that.
Right, it was confusing because we were getting a report every month prior that says X millions are on deposit here.
So Promontory basically takes the farming out of funds out of the picture. So they do that for clients. So they place it in less than 250,000 increments if it's $50 million across the network, and less than $250,000 increments to make room for interest payments so as to not put you over that level. So you're always completely secured. Again, there's over 3,000 banks of the 6,000 banks in the nation that participate in this program. And again, your securities are held with a third party presently. First National Bank of Louisiana holds our security portfolio. And those have securities pledged in your name. And those are adjusted on a monthly basis. So monitored daily and adjusted on a monthly basis, depending on your balance at the end of the month.
Okay. All right, so we'll have the lawyers work this out and bring this back at a future date.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Ms. Ellishover does not get to sit down because we have item number 10, which is consider approval of transfer current balances on deposit at BB&T and Kentucky Bank to traditional bank.
Yes, so you were provided with bank statements for the month end of August, and this is at the end of that cash position report where it said $1.138 million is on deposit with BB&T. That's this bank statement you're seeing. It was an investment that was made back when the bonds were sold to start the high school. When that construction bond was sold, part of that money at that time, the decision was made to put on deposit at BB&T, because I assume at that point you were getting a good interest rate compared to your operational account. At this point, the rate we're receiving at BB&T, we get $10 a month, which is minuscule and not worth our investment anymore, considering that we're getting 1.5 at the moment from traditional. So it would be in our benefit interest-wise to move that money to our operational account. And the same thing with Kentucky Bank. That used to be the operational account, and some dollars were still housed there when we moved to traditional bank a couple years ago, just to ensure that any automatic deposits, because there's a lot of things that the state takes out of our account for health insurance and such, that we didn't bounce any of that. Obviously, we don't want to not have the funds to pay what are our requirements. So money was left there, and I have finally gotten everything transferred off of Kentucky Bank onto traditional. And so that account is free to close and move also to traditional bank operational.
What about school activity accounts? Are
Those
separate, and
they are
schools
separate
have their
accounts.
choices about
Yes,
where
ma'am.
they put it?
Yes, the recommendation is to go with the bond of depository because they would get the same interest rate that is offered on our operational account, and the benefits of the free everything and waiver of fees and all of that. But they are free to choose whatever bank they wish to bank with. So those are separate accounts, not in consideration with the district's money.
On the Kentucky Bank statement, let me clarify that since the computer might have had a problem with the decimal or
Yeah,
the
their bank
comma.
statements are a little strange.
Between the 3 and the 9,
There
should
should
there
be
be
a
a comma?
comma.
So that's $3.9 million?
Yes, yes, sir. Yeah, their statements are a bit weird.
Well,
They're hard to read.
I've never ran into that problem on my account myself,
Yeah.
but, so then,
Wish I had that problem.
so to recap, there's $3.9 million in this particular account
Yes, sir.
that is earning 0.1%, and the proposal is to move that to the traditional bank arrangement. And right now, that's currently paying 1.5%.
Yes, sir.
That seems like a good score.
Yes.
And then the same thing on the BB&T, where we're talking about $1.1 million that's earning point something,
Yeah, like
point nothing.
point nothing.
And that will also be moved up.
Yes.
And so that's,
is
that should
the
be a
request.
very substantial improvement
Yes.
when you do that. Sounds
And I
great.
looked back in previous board minutes trying to find the initial investment of the BB&T money and could not find, at the time that bond was sold, that it was brought to the board, but we want to make sure we bring it to the board to just put it in the minutes that we are transferring this money, and then if any investments in the future occur, we would bring those to the board for approval to invest in a different manner if that becomes to the benefit of the district.
Mr. Elkins, did you see any problem with this from your perspective, from past agreements?
I didn't see this, I didn't see this particular part of your agenda today in any way where I could offer any opinion. But then again, I want to say to you that I'm never looking for the value, what it's worth to you in terms of dollars or the benefits. I'm really just considering the legalities of it. So, I think Ms. Ellis, being a financial officer, probably knows, her opinion holds value to this board about what the value of it is. I think that's what she's talking about.
Are there any penalties or downside moving the money?
Not that I can think of, because we're going to increase our interest. We're still, at this point, even negating what just happened, the conversation prior to this, we are $250,000 FDIC insurance and then pledged up to 103% securities. And when this money gets transferred, they will pledge more securities in our name to cover what we deposit with them. So we are still secured, even moving the money all in one basket per se, eggs in one basket. We are, per our RFP,
And
we're
I can't tell you that their
secured.
agreement would require them to do that.
Yes. Yeah, anytime our bank balance ebbs and flows, they either release securities or pledge securities to keep us at that 103% per the RFP. I don't see a downside unless someone else can enlighten me.
I just see a fantastic upside.
That's kind of how I'm looking at it.
So what is required of us based on the conversations and documentation that still needs to take place between the attorneys?
I think it's two separate
Two
issues.
separate
that-
issues at this point.
If I understand correctly, they're looking for perhaps a simpler way to affect the responsibilities under the current RFP that would be
Correct.
simpler for them and simpler for you.
Yes.
But absent of that occurring yet, we could still bring this money over and it would fall underneath the current
The
arrangement.
current
that we-
agreement, correct.
That we have.
Is that correct?
That's what I would think. That's what I think. So let me just explain the value concept just a little bit better. It's said in the law that while maybe a peppercorn is not worth anything to me when I'm trying to make a contract to buy it or sell it, it may be worth a lot to somebody else. So when I look at these contracts, I'm not trying to decide what the value of it is, the economic value, what you get for it, if you bargain for it, what that means to you. I'm just trying to see what the legal issues with it would be. Is it a binding contract? Does it have the elements that are required so we can enforce it later? And I always think about these things in terms of maybe embarrassingly, in case we wind up in litigation over who owes who money or who has to pay it and when, that we've left ourselves in a position to win. That's really what I'm concerned about, whether it's 3.3 million, 3,300, at the risk of one of the parties or perhaps even myself have to cover the cost. So I'm not really thinking about what the dollars are, I'm just thinking about what the legalities are. From that perspective, it all seems proper to me. We do have that agreement with Traditional Bank, which would cause them to increase their collateralization, and we need to make sure that we're secure.
Okay. Other discussion, questions, Mr. Ellis? Miss Ellis. All right. If none, motion is in order to consider approval to transfer the current balances on deposit with BB&T and Kentucky Bank to Traditional Bank.
I'd like to make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Heisel,
Second.
second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next up is item number 11, consider approval of revisions of preschool teacher and preschool family service worker job descriptions to reflect the preschool coordinator, name change to principal. I think I said it all. Go ahead, Scarlett.
Well, just housekeeping. These two positions need to report to a principal rather than the preschool coordinator.
No changes in any of the other.
No, if it referred to coordinators down in the document, I would have changed that to principal, but other than that, other than just a little bit of cleaning up of possibly, you know how we like to format our documents. Judy, I had to reformat a few things, but no dialogue change.
Other questions from Ms. Ryan or discussion? If not, motion is in order to consider approval of revisions of preschool teacher and preschool family service worker job descriptions to reflect the preschool coordinator update to principal.
I'll make that motion as written.
Motion by Mr. Parado,
Second.
second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Next is Mr. Holland. Consider approval of extending the nurse hours from 35 hours per week to 40 hours per week for all school nurses.
Come to you with this now. This is something that's been on my mind, been something that I've been considering quite some time. I've watched in the time that I've been in this role, the school nurses have more and more placed on them through the course of the years that I've seen, witnessed and watched firsthand. Through immunization changes, which are coming, through the things that they are supposed to do data-wise from KDE, that more and more emphasis is being put on, that they have to have accurate record keeping, through the severe medical needs that our students have that are more severe every year. Some of the needs that we have in our buildings for students are incredibly severe. I come to you this for two reasons. Number one is for a safety issue. We have nurses every time I visit, and I think our principals can attest to this as well. Oftentimes you'll walk by their office and they'll have 2 and 3 students sitting outside their office waiting to see these students. And that's not just in a heavy time of November, December, January, and February. This is in September and October, where these students oftentimes use our nurses as their medical provider. And our families oftentimes do as well. And that's what they're looked to. They'll look to play doctor, nurse, surgeon, in some cases even, if you will. My first concern is that as taking a look at the responsibilities that the nurses have put on them, from a record-keeping standpoint, from what they're dealing with student illness, what they're dealing with students who have chronic disabilities, and them being the primary people with this. If a teacher were to multitask in a classroom, and they are tutoring a couple of students, they're trying to put some grades in, they transpose a grade incorrectly. Parent calls up, oh, I'm sorry, we made a mistake on that. I can go back and transpose that correctly, we can recalculate. Sometimes the records that our nurses are dealing with are life and death situations, and I say that literally, not life and death situations. If they make a mistake on some of the data entry, that's a life or death situation for some of these students. They have to have this entered in correctly. The time that they have, 35 hours through the course of a week, just adequately in this day and age does not allow and afford for them to be able to see students, to work with families, to work with our staffs, to train our staffs, and to do the data entry that is now being required of them. So I'm coming to you with this to increase from 35 hours per week to 40 hours per week. My father taught me never to use a particular word. and that word is fair. And I don't use the term fair ever. But compensated fairly for something I think does apply here, because what's happening for our nurses, who are represented here, is in order to ensure the safety and the needs of our school district, they either have to stay and work much into the night, and then we get to a Friday or so, and then they have to leave our schools exposed. And oftentimes that's the reason that we need them there, is to be able to handle those issues. Or, unfortunately, what happens for most of them is they clock out, stay on, and they work, which they're not supposed to do. And that's because they just don't have the time to get the things done that needs to be done. And I'm witnessing that at a higher rate this year than ever before. I do understand the times that we're in. I understand what Governor Bevin has put us in, and I understand the timing as well or better than anybody. But to know what they go through and to know it's a safety issue, as well as I feel they need to be compensated fairly for the time they're putting in, that's why I bring this to you.
So this will be a recurrent expense. What would your estimate be for annual cost of the district?
According to Ms. Ellis, it would be $46,900.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
$46,900.
Why was this not presented to us? If you've been thinking about this a really long time, why wasn't it presented when we were discussing salaries and including salaries in the budget and making budget changes, salary changes?
Something we have discussed for quite a bit of time. We try to do the best that we possibly can with what's been given to us. If you'll notice, I don't ever stand up before you and ask you for anything. I don't think you can ever remember a time when I've done that. It's a difficult thing, I think, for all of us to ask to do. We try to take with what's given to us and make it work, but I just feel we've gotten to a stage where it's not challenging, it's exceeded what we can do, and that's why I'd like to bring it to you now.
I mean, I'd like to echo Mrs. Hicks' concern. That's where I was coming from, and I also think that perhaps, would have been more appropriate last year, or maybe that's something we would do looking forward to the next year. I believe you'd exchanged some emails regarding how Medicaid might pay for this.
Correct.
But is that just simply, if Medicaid pays for it, does that reduce the amount of leftover funds that would be in the general fund from Medicaid? So
Well,
it's just more of a matter of semantics, and we're still out at the end of the day 46.9.
Well, it's one of the reasons I didn't bring Medicaid up is one of the big time expenses, time-wise, for our nursing staff is that they are predominant people in the Medicaid recording and how that they have to get that entered in. I believe we've talked in years past, it may have gone to general fund, but I think there's a discussion of restructuring that just a little bit that we have today to where that initially, if you'll look under the transmittal that was put down, it was put down as general fund, but this is something that could easily be covered by Medicaid. If we take it and actually branch Medicaid into looking line by line items.
So Medicaid revenue is not general fund revenue?
I think it has been set there in years past. I would have to.
It goes to general fund. And the use of it is unrestricted. Once the Medicaid is billed, it's very restrictive how you can bill for Medicaid, but once you collect it, it's unrestricted how you use it. So therefore, in past, it has gone into the general fund.
But it doesn't have to. And one of the things too that an argument is made, I think that's where our discussion is that we have special needs, that if they were given the funds that they help to generate, that could help to create some of the things, buy some of these supplies that are vastly needed within their department. The funds that the nurses generate, that's the sort of thing that could be helped to given back to them to where that they could help to buy some of those things that are needed as well. Those are things that when you look at it from a general fund standpoint versus can we break that out a little bit and look at it line by line item, that's where we could come from that.
Again, I want to make sure I understand correctly on the Medicaid issue. If we've made this change, this will not change the reimbursement we get from the federal government any?
I would go so far as to say it would increase it. If you give better time to actually input these services in, can I say that 100% sure? No. But I would say if you give better time, adequate record keeping, it would lend itself to actually increasing the revenue.
Litigation.
So
You would characterize that as speculative at this point in time?
Correct. There's no way to know that.
But I would say with our nurses, for our nurses being in school, the value of them is paid for themselves many times over. When you look at enrollment and those type of things, absentees, that even though it doesn't, there's nothing on the spreadsheet that says they brought in this much money, we pay out this much money, there's no doubt. Schools wouldn't even have nurses if that were not the case. It's very obvious that nurses basically make your district money.
Thank you. I appreciate you mentioning that. 2015 to 16, we did a study that showed 37,052, we rounded it down to 50 to make it easy to remember, 37,050 office visits that sent students back to class because they were able to see a nurse instead of going to the front office, which in turn, if you don't have a nurse, generally constitutes, let's call home, and we would send the child home. That lent itself to $763,000 plus that the nurses saved by being in the building, being able to see them and send them back to class.
Speaking from former principal, I wouldn't do a school without one because it does make the difference.
So along those same lines of reasoning, if they're working 35 hours a week now, maybe, and you take it to 40, does that then give you the potential to pick up some additional funds?
Absolutely.
From the, let's call it the Friday afternoon we didn't have a nurse?
Well, what you're going to do is for those nurses who are taking that option to, if they're working into the evening time and having to leave at half day, that fleshes that out to where that you are going to have a nurse then Monday through Friday, every time that a student is in session. We feel confident with that. And you're also going to, for those people who don't do that because they don't want to leave their school unserviced without a nurse, then that fairly compensates those people who are clocking out and then continuing to work another hour, hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes.
May I say that it would keep kids alive if we're in the building? I mean, I hate to put it that way, but, I mean, I know the funds are important, but if the nurses can stay in the building every day for the time that they're supposed to be there, instead of having to work over on Monday and leave at 12 o'clock on Friday, it increases the chance that the safety is what's probably most important. So I would think being able to be in the building and keep your staff and your kids safe would definitely trump anything else.
Mr. Holland, you listed a number of items or activities that might occupy the time of nurses and about them attending ARC meetings outside the school day. Well, how is the nursing activity covered when nurses must attend ARC meetings during the school day?
Well, they can still be contacted because they're in the building during that time frame. Most of these people, with the exception of our district health coordinator, they're still in those buildings. They've got radio with them. So if they have a dire emergency, they can knock on that door, they can radio them, they can be present in the meeting and still step out and service the needs of the students. They're not servicing the needs of students in other buildings.
Of course, Mr. Christie, this will circle around to what your thought is on it, because, you know, if we spend $46.9 on this, that's potentially $46.9 we don't have in the pile to use for salary tweaks and improvements district-wide.
I would suggest if you move forward on this that we specify that the difference would come from the Medicaid funding. And we're going to set up a column in the budget that shows the true amount that's been billed in Medicaid. But that Medicaid money is not only generated by nurses, but it's generated in the transportation department, special needs, several other areas too. But I would agree that the additional time in the buildings could possibly generate more money. Not that they do any better record keeping in another hour a day, but they would do additional visits and additional things in the time of the day that would generate money.
What is the Medicaid reimbursement process? Is there a position that does that application?
In
Does that
different
application each month?
areas, yes.
The application is submitted through an individual that works for me. It's submitted traditionally every September, and we get the support that is needed from different individuals. We have a listing of all service providers, and all service providers include related service personnel, nurses, health assistants or health aides, which could very well be some of our instructional assistants. You also have O&M services. So all those combined,
Okay.
including
What's O&M?
transportation.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is ambulance.
Orientation and mobility.
Orientation and mobility. Basically, it's for a visual impairment child so that requires those services to learn how to move across transitional areas.
So how often is the application for reimbursement made?
The application itself for the service is in every year, it's annually.
For
But
the
then-
reimbursement is once a year?
No, it's throughout the year.
Yes, throughout
The
the year.
application itself is once a year. But then starting, once that application occurs, monthly billing is submitted. So actually daily in circumstances, a child can be daily billed on, but then it's updated every monthly. We receive reimbursement approximately a month after. So,
Okay, so we request reimbursement every month?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
But the nurses do billing every day. It's not something that we do once a month. Like, when I sit down to do my billing for Medicaid, it's daily, because whatever services are rendered that day for those children have to go into KSBA to our Easy Ed Med program.
I understand that.
So it's a daily billing process.
But from the district to request reimbursement
Right, right.
for funding reimbursement is...
This is not something that we wait for the check to come in at the end of the
Right.
year. We get that continuously, yes.
And the Medicaid billing also includes direct billable services, and that's for individuals that have specific certificates or licensure where they can actually submit billing activities. So we have reimbursements for those as well, in addition to the direct billings that can occur daily for individual students.
I have to also add, the health aides cannot bill without a registered nurse. So if the health aides are doing the service or providing the service, it cannot be billed for unless it's signed off. So everything a health aide does, the registered nurse has to go in and supervise. So if they're doing the work, we're not there, we can't bill for it.
Mrs. Ellis, could I ask a question? This is under Medicaid reimbursement, under federal reimbursement. The budget we're currently sitting under, I believe, is $200,000. Does that sound right? And then what we received last year was $281.
Yes, you will see in the working budget, I adjusted that up to 250,000 just to still be conservative. But the past 2 years, we've done 248,000 the year before whatever you just said.
281.
So I kind of did in between 250, and then we have set up a direct expense side 250 now that can accommodate this as well as the direct billing that Bridget is speaking of, where to buy the items, because they have to purchase the items up front, then bill for it to get it back.
So what I think I heard you say, and make sure I understood it correctly, is that you think it's a pretty darn good chance, I don't know if that's an exact technical term, that we won't get $200,000 in revenue. We probably are going to get something closer to 250.
Yes, sir.
So you think there's a pretty good chance we'll pick up 50,000 on that.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, the cost of this is
$46,900.
And so when I was sitting here 15 minutes worried about, we've got our $300,000 pile of money that's still available in the budget for various uses, and if we had to use it for this, we can't use it for something else. Perhaps a tweak to that assumption is there might be a funding source on it, so that just leaves Did it really just come up in the last month, or is it something that probably should have been addressed?
As I said, it's something that could have been brought to you 4 years ago. I see a need, and I'm seeing a need for it daily this year, and I just wasn't going to let another month go by to not bring it before you. Can that have waited until the budget talks? Could it have waited until next year? But that wouldn't have helped the students and our district this year, so that is why I brought it.
So which employee group will we hear from next month for?
I'm just trying to advocate on behalf of our district and our health services.
Yeah, that would be my concern.
Whichever one ever needs a raise, is what I'd say we hear from.
You got to think about your kids too. That's something like mine.
I don't think they're asking for a raise. I think they're asking to be paid for what they're doing.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you.
Well, it's putting the safety personnel in front of the kids every day. You're not ensuring that right now.
May I speak?
Sure.
I started working as a school nurse 24 years ago under the health department's auspices. But when I first started, I did very little. You know, there was a hired person that came, put all the immunizations in. I didn't do a lot of paperwork, but you know, each year there are more things that they keep adding. And the way right now, I come to work at 7:20. I started passing meds. I have 2 very brittle diabetic children. And I'm supposed to walk out the door, and I don't get lunch. I mean, it just doesn't happen anymore. I work for lunch, and then at 10 till 3, when the kids are leaving, is when I'm supposed to clock out. So I have no time to do paper. You know, I try to grab and get some things done in between kids, but it's just tough. And we keep getting more things added to our plate in the way of paperwork.
I can speak on behalf of Baker. I've been at 4 schools in my 3 years with Clark County Public School System, and I'm at Baker this year and opening a school that large. We get 900 health consents in, and I saw, for example, 61 children yesterday in 7 hours. I have not gotten through those health consents. I have no idea what's in my building. It doesn't feel safe. I don't know what emergency meds I'm missing. I haven't been able to communicate with parents. I just today, on September 19th, finished looking through the 6th grade consents, just to kind of give you an idea of what our day looks like in our office. That doesn't include Medicaid billing, speaking with parents, attending meetings, trying to train our staff in the hours that are allotted. And the one thing that I think is important to say is that I do take a lunch. You know, I go to lunch, I leave my office so that I'm fresh to come back to work with my kids. And I've never had a job that's asked me to work for free. And so I come in, I do my job, I clock in because I'm a classified staff, even with an RN license, I'm not certified. And I clock out at the end of my 7-hour day. And when that can't happen because there's an emergency at the end of the day, when I'm having a seizure and an ambulance showing up, then I'm told I have to leave my job on Friday with all those consents, all of the stuff I need to do, and I'm told I have to clock out and leave my building on a Friday, and that's hard, and it's not what I want to do, and so I'm not saying I have to work 40 hours, but there are definitely weeks that it would be nice to have that cushion to be able to stay in that week. I'm not saying that every week I need 40 hours, but it sure would be nice to not have to worry about that 35 hours and I'm going to be in trouble because I stayed 15 minutes over or an hour over that week. So that's kind of my story in my building.
Okay. Other discussion?
Is your proposal to increase it to 40 hours or to increase it up to 40 hours? And the difference being that their 35 would be their base, but if they could go up to 40.
My proposal would be to ask for 40 because I know that with the amount of paperwork that goes in, I have no doubt that these nurses need the time to be able to put that paperwork in. If I have to settle for it, then I would settle for up to 40 hours. But my proposal is the 40 because having spent time around these people, routinely, I know for a fact that they can use that 40 hours.
Other discussion? All right, I would like to make a motion. So your motion says, consider approval extending the nurse hours from 35 hours to 40 hours per week for all school nurses. You going to say anything about funding? Or just as is?
Just as is fine.
Okay, motion by Mr. Parado,
Second.
second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 2-3 with Mr. Parado and Ms. Ritchie in favor, and Dr. Kudak and Ms. Hicks and Mr. Heisel opposed. I'd like to make a motion that approves extending the nurse hours from 35 hours a week to 40 hours per week for all school nurses with funding to come from Medicaid reimbursement.
You're making, I'll second.
Okay, so motion's on table by Dr. Kudak, second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1 with Ms. Ritchie, Ms. Hicks, Mr. Parado, and Dr. Kudak in favor, and Mr. Heisel opposed.
Can I state what I heard without you throwing something at me? I just don't want this to be a semantics thing later on. You had said the first measure passes 2-3.
It failed 2-3.
Okay, I just wanted to, I
The
didn't want it to
roll
be
on
something that somebody
right.
throws out semantically later on, so.
So the vote on that was Parado and Ritchie in favor, and then Hicks, Kudak, and Heisel opposed. And then the revised motion was 4-1 in favor, Hicks, Kudak, Ritchie, and Parado in favor, and Heisel opposed.
Thank you all very
Is
much.
that clear?
Thank you.
You got that, this stance? Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
I was holding out for number 3, though.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next up is item number 13, consider approval of the surplus list.
Good evening. Again, it is what it says it is. I'm asking the board to consider surplusing several buses as well as lawnmowers, assorted ceramic tile. We also have custodial equipment that's outlived its usefulness. All these items have no more value to the district other than what we could probably get in scrap metal.
Yeah, we're surplusing many buses and only buying 4. Can you explain the discrepancy?
Can I describe, well, we have 8 buses that are considered extra. We have 47 routes and 10 buses, then we added 2 routes since school started, made 49.
We had 2 routes to resolve the issue that one parent came and had a discussion about. So we added 2 additional routes out in our county areas to resolve those issues for those students.
I think we've just held on, Dr. Kudak, to answer your question, I think we've held on to these buses longer than we should have. And they've now outlived their worth. They're not roadworthy. And our mechanics are afraid to put their names on them and put them out on the road.
Were they all in the bus garage?
They're all in the back of the bus garage.
Okay.
How will you advertise this? Because I know quite a number of other districts have a link on their website for surplus items.
We can do that. We have in the past, when we've asked the board to surplus things like the mobile truck, the mobile unit behind Phoenix Academy, for example. I think we sent an RFP out twice on that with nobody responding whatsoever.
So what was your plan on this?
I was going to do an RFP and make that information available. Actually, me and Danny discussed it this morning, making it available on our website and with an RFP through our local newspaper.
And if we don't get responses, what happens?
We'll probably take them to the scrapyard and get what we can out of it.
We've, in the past, when I was doing this before, we've also put it on some of the trade things, eBay and some things like that. I've even advertised and sold some off of eBay, some buses.
And there has been some interest lately in the purchase of some of our used buses for different reasons. Hunting vehicles and storage
Several
units.
interests of actually using them for storage units. We've got lots of interest in regards to that as well.
We're making houses out of them on HGTV now.
I see
Yeah,
that.
in case you raise the tax rate to 64%.
There's a new sport out there racing school buses in a figure 8 pattern. It's crazy. We sold 5 buses to people last time that were interested in it.
Okay. I was just wondering about the math there, surplusing 22 and buying 4 didn't really seem to add up to
I
it.
think the KDE suggests 14 years. We do still have some buses that are over 14 years old, but they're in better condition than the ones I've asked the board to support.
I guess just as a side, I would encourage you to try to, get the word out there so other people can see it, maybe if there is a spot on our website that could be developed. It's a
Absolutely.
holding place for this and, other items that might come up.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Nichols? If not, a motion is in order to consider approval of the surplus item list as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Heisel,
Second.
second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, next up is item number 14. So surplus buses, now we're going to buy some,
Hopefully.
hopefully.
Our KISTA payment will be reduced by $28,000. We can actually replace, purchase 2 buses and put them on the KISTA plan for the same amount, as explained to us by Lincoln, what is Lincoln? Yeah, from KISTA. So essentially, if we buy 2 buses from KISTA, our KISTA payment would not change based on what's coming off of our KISTA payment this year. Also, we have a very unique situation in the fact that St. Xavier, an independent school district, has decided to do away with their transportation department. They have 3 buses. They have promised us they would hold those buses until tomorrow, 20th, and have offered us first purchase because we were the first ones to contact them after it was made known that they were interested in selling. But after tomorrow, those 2 buses, which is a 2014, which only has 24,000 miles on it, and a 2008 model that has 66,000 miles on it, which both of them are in excellent condition. I sent Mr. Christie some photos of those buses today. Those kind of miles on those year buses, they're in excellent shape.
So is this 38,000 for those 2 buses together?
Yes, ma'am.
38 times 1 or 38 times 2?
38 times
2, that's supposed to.
Just to get 2 buses for 38,000. They originally wanted 40,000 and
2 buses for 38,000.
Yeah. 1 new bus is 100,000.
so, I've given you 2 options. We could purchase an additional 2 buses for a total of 6. But obviously, the board can choose either option or any version of those 2 options that the board would choose to do so. But I would recommend that, to definitely take advantage of those 2 buses that are in excellent shape.
So, as usual, my question will wander around to what's in the budget right now? Are we assuming that the KISTA payment will remain level through the year?
Yes.
Or will it drop off at-
If we purchase 2 buses, it would remain level with what's coming off this year. It would stay the same. We would add 28,000 back to it.
What do we assume right now? That it'll drop off during the year?
It's drop off
We have one
28,000.
KISTA bond that's dropping off this year, which is what frees up the 28,000 he's talking about.
So that, we've assumed that is going to drop off, so we're assuming those savings at this
That's
point
already
in
in the
time.
debt service schedule that is in the budget, is that dropping off.
Every 10 years.
Purchase time.
So if we use this KISTA, the payments start next. So the budget stays level this year, and next debt service schedule for the 19 school year, you would have those payments come off. But if you buy the buses that he is talking about using the KISTA fund, that debt payment would basically stay. Whereas in the 19 budget, which we haven't talked about yet, it would drop. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, I think you lost me again.
Okay.
So
So
in the
currently
current
our
budget,
debt service
does
schedule-
does it drop off in the middle of this year?
No, not the middle of this year. The budget for debt service is budgeted for this year, what you all have seen. It's not gonna change in the working budget. The bond that is dropping off, the payments, and then we're adding the bond, the payments start in the 19 school year. So if we don't do this KISTA bond he is talking about, you will see a decrease in our KISTA debt service. But if you do this, it will stay the same as it is this year, is what the concept is right now.
And then I guess when we talk about KISA, their money for it's not free. I think we'd exchange an email of that's 2 to 3.5%. So we look at it on one hand, we're getting 1.5% from a traditional bank, we're turning around and paying them 2 to 3.5%.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
This is on the question of whether we would finance those or just simply pay cash for them. And then the question is, how many do you get? I mean, this opportunity from St. Xavier certainly seems worthy of serious consideration as phase one, and then whether we should just buy 2 brand new buses might be a phase 2 question, just from my perspective.
I'm actually proposing, I guess, in both proposals, I'm proposing 6 buses including the 2 used buses. But obviously, you know, the board has the option to do either or, option 1 or option 2, or any version of those options. If you just want to purchase 2 buses or 6 buses or 4.
So option 1 is either 2, is up
It's
to
2 KISTA
4
and 2
buses.
cash.
And option 2 is up to 6 buses.
Option 1 is 6 buses as well, 2 on KISTA, bank,
and
2
plus
out of
2
general
from
fund. Yes. And again, you know, the board has the option of not choosing either option. You could come up with the third
Okay,
option
so
of your own.
what's the advantage of purchasing 2 from general fund and 2 from KISTA over purchasing all 4 from KISTA?
If we were trying to keep the $28,000 payment the same, and you also save money by buying the buses outright, you're not paying an interest payment. So over time, you save money.
So how much interest are we saving?
I think I have that in here, about $38,000.
Over the 10 years.
Yes, over a 10-year period.
Over what period of
10-year
time?
period,
10 years.
10-year period, financed for 10-year period.
I'm sorry, it's $34,000, not $38,000.
And to make sure I find this correctly on the budget, this is under transportation, and is this under 700 property? Is that where a bus purchase goes?
Yep, yes, that would be where purchasing of buses.
And so if my record's on this correctly, in 2015, the property line, which might include more than just buses, was 887,000, and 16 was 487,000. And we didn't have any budget last year.
Last year, there was none purchased, well, last year, there has to be, we haven't done the entry to put the 4 buses. It's a wash entry when we buy from KISTA, we book the revenue and book, and that has not been done. That will be done through the audit that you see on the final AFR. So that's not showing yet. That will show the 4 buses that we purchased on KISTA this past year, which was, can't think of your number right now. I'm blank, I'm sorry.
So that doesn't show in the AFR we already have.
It's a wash entry, it'll be book the revenue, book the expense. It's not anything to the district. Because KISTA, we bought the bond at KISTA, and they kept the money and paid it directly to the person for the buses. And that hasn't been done. That is done through the audit.
What line does the payment show up on then?
The expense payment will show up on that 700 line when it is booked. It's just not, it's shown at this very moment on what you have in front of you.
For last year?
Correct. When you review the audited AFR that will come in November after the audit, you will see that amount on that line. But you will also see an entry on revenue for a bond purchase, which is the KISTA bond.
You know, I'm still viewing it sort of a two-phase. So at prior meeting, we talked about that we need to have a future working session where we talk about how we might do some reinvestment of, quite frankly, some contingency funds left over from last year. Makes me wonder whether the big money ought to be in that, but then splitting this into an opportunity that's right in front of us to get 2 bargain buses. I mean, I'll just say out loud, where I'm wondering to that is we would go ahead and do that and perhaps put the main purchase off for that session where we look at everything.
The only thing to consider there is you need to look at when are we going to have this work session? When are we going to do that? Because the deadline of ordering buses to get for next year is coming up. I mean, we're approaching the deadline of getting buses for next year. You got to order them this year to get them next year.
Well, I sure hope we have it sooner than later.
Now, let's see, we have a
About
working budget
November
next
is usually
meeting.
the cutoff. About November is about the cutoff for ordering buses and getting them next year. Anything after that, you're looking probably not.
Previous, or the future spring improvements when you're looking at, you don't get them in by November. That's a deadline for us.
So we could have this working session in October. Or it could be we'll have to have multiple sessions because it's a big topic. Again, just talking out loud where I'm thinking.
Well, let's get back to this proposal, so.
Well,
I didn't want to bring the opportunity, and I believe it is a great opportunity to purchase 2 used buses without presenting the other buses along with that unique opportunity. It's one of the reasons that we brought it all tonight, was to have this opportunity. And this opportunity will be gone tomorrow if we do not act on it tonight.
For those 2.
Yes, ma'am.
would you object, from your perspective, if we break this into several components and start out with the purchase of, with a
Fine with
motion?
that. So,
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead then and to get this first part out of the way, because I think it might be some lower hanging fruit, to propose that we purchase these 2 buses that are offered to us from St. Xavier Independent as described in this document, which is the 2004 bus with 24,000 miles and a 2008 bus.
I thought you said 2004.
I'm sorry, 2014. Sorry, Mrs. Nance, I'll try to be more, speak more clearly. And then a 2008 bus with 66,000 miles with a total cost of $38,000.
all right. So motion's on the table on Mr. Heisel, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hicks, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay? So now the discussion is about new buses.
Can I make at least one recommendation?
Sure.
That you at least go ahead and do the 2 Kista. Since I've been here 12 years and I've watched that Kista and tried to keep it at the same payment, and we've monitored that very closely, and we've been able to pick up, I've been here 12 years, and we've bought 32 buses, and the vast majority has come off the Kista payment that's been kept about the same for all those years.
I was going to mention that because that's something that's a strategy the district's been doing. Judy's been on the board. When I first came on the board, our bus shape was in pretty miserable. Bus fleet was in pretty miserable shape. And
12 years ago, we were 16, almost 17. Every bus was average of 17 years old.
17 to 20.
yeah.
Our average age today is 8.
And I think the approach that we've been using is to try to keep that KISTA fund payment same. Those interest rates are fairly stable from year to year, and terms are reasonably generous to us. And just keep as money is released, reinvesting it by getting new buses. So,
I guess my perspective on that is I'd as soon as have us pay cash for it.
right.
But again, that's just my perspective.
And when the rest of your needs come up, you don't have.
What it
There's
does,
a
it
debate
sort of-
about if you spend it on this, what else?
It sort of
What
gives
didn't
us
you spend it on?
Sort of gives us a savings account for the future when we don't have to make that payment 3 years from now. So, but that's just my perspective. We each have one.
And if you go with the 4 buses, our KISTA payment goes up, right?
Stays the same.
Stays the same.
Oh, no, if you go with 4 on KIST,
Yeah.
it's gonna go up.
It's gonna go up.
It's gonna go up from 28 to about 56. It's gonna go up to 28,000.
Okay. Other thoughts, discussion, motions? I will make a motion to purchase 4 buses on KISTA for a cost of $56,000 per year.
Second.
So motion by Dr. Kudak, second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Judy?
No, I'm okay with 2, I'm not with 4.
Okay. So motion passes 3-2 with Dr. Kudak, Ms. Ritchie, and Mr. Pardo in favor, and Mr. Heisel, and Ms. Hicks opposed.
Thank you very much.
And the reason I made the motion for 4 is because we just surplus 22, and I really don't like that math. I hate to say that, but
Conversation earlier.
22 surplus, even if you got 8 extra, it gives you 14, and I don't think we need to leave the bus garage in that kind of situation, so.
I will say from everyone up there, we've got to appreciate it very much.
Second that.
All right.
Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Stump, application number 5 to Performance Services.
As you said, application number 5 for $1,02,222 to PSI, which will leave a balance that's listed on the schedule value sheet on the back of roughly 2.9 million. Actually, 2.975424.
Okay. Any questions on that? Or further discussion?
On the request for payment detail in terms of the percentage of completion, I'm assuming you reviewed each of those, run a smell test on it. And
Yeah, actually, if you-
all smells reasonable to me.
You have the schedule value sheet
Is that
to view there? I'll show you.
this sheet right here?
Yeah.
We don't need to go over into detail. I just wanted
No, I
to
just
say, yeah,
want to
you
point
went
out,
over it and you're
at the
happy
bottom,
with
it shows you 53 point. It takes that from the value of the total contract and comes up with the exact figure that they're billing for. So it's almost right, dead on target.
Well, I guess my question is, though, when they say that they've gotten 61.85% of a building control upgrade, you've looked at that and say, yeah,
Absolutely.
that seems reasonable. to
That's
me.
correct, and that fluctuates across the trades.
Right.
But absolutely, that's what I watch.
Any other discussion? If not, motion is in order to consider approval of pay application number 5 to Performance Services for the District Energy Savings Project in the amount of $1,02,222.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Heisel,
Second.
second by Mr. Parrott. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Stump. Next up is item number 16, Board Superintendent Goals. Let's see, this process started in January, if I'm not mistaken. And we wanted to revise the Board Superintendent goals for the years 2017 through 2019. We've been spinning our wheels a little bit. Each of these goals has metrics which are used to measure these goals. Some of our metrics were taken away or became obsolete in some way, shape, or form. And I met with Ms. Considine and Mr. Christie a couple weeks ago to try to kind of hammer things out. And what you're seeing before you is the result of that. I don't think there's any substantive changes in the goals themselves. We talked about that at the last meeting, but some of the changes are on the metrics and the way we measure these things. So, and all of the board superintendent goals are indexed on our agendas. So when agenda items are submitted, they have to reference one of these board superintendent goals to get on. So the first 3 goals really didn't change that much. What we actually debated the use of the word proficiency because the state assessment system is changing, but we still see the word proficiency in there, so I think it's appropriate to use. So, and district and school report cards, until we get other guidance from the state, will probably still be referred to by those names, so that's still accurate. All students at grades 4, 6, and 8 on grade level for reading, math, and writing. MAP is Waypoint. We had a presentation on MAP looking at national data, which I think actually reinforces the validity of using that. So MAP really isn't designed for that. MAP is designed as a tool to say, this child needs help in this area, and you need to target interventions at these children. Now, we tend to use it as an overall kind of an interim measure. If you don't do that, you have just your year-end assessment to look at. So end-of-year assessment, other academic data as it comes in, language mechanics assessments. All students college and career ready, again, that's changed because industry standard testing has changed, so ACT is still a gold standard there, but we've had to make some adjustments with that. I think another important item there is feedback from employers and industry regarding job skills needed in the work phase. That's something I hear from the industrial community frequently, that our graduates need skills X, Y, Z, A, B, C. And that's something I hear very frequently from local government and local industry. And that's something I think I'd like to see us open some sort of dialogue between the district and industry to make sure that we're supplying our graduates with the equipment and tools and skills they need to succeed. We changed number 5 to say graduation rate at or above trajectory. We got rid of X and Y, which had been there for a while.
What's the trajectory?
It is basically, let's see, if you're improving at work now, our graduation rate is 96% thereabouts. So,
Or about 97.
right when the I don't know whether that was statute or just part of the assessment, but they would basically look at things and say, when you get the state assessments, they say, okay, you're here, and we want you to grow by this year, this year, and that year. And basically, trajectory brings it into account. We're at 96%. We're at the top, almost close to the top of the curve. So, how much more improvement do we have?
Is there going to be any additional trajectory?
I don't know. That's a good question. We'll
We just
have
have to sustain it at 100%.
right. So, I guess if we are 100% for 3 years in a row, we'll have to have that conversation then. So, but I think that's better than saying, okay, it's got to be this number here and this number there, because actually that's laid out for us. So. Assuring that we're meeting those goals, which I think at this point, they're not going to set a rate lower than 96% for us. So, and we're up there. We have our work cut out for us to stay at that level. So, item number 6 is assuring equity for all schools and students, making significant progress in closing achievement gaps. Our district has been very successful in a lot of areas, but I would really like to see an intentional focus on closing all achievement gaps across all at-risk populations. I think that's very important. That's something I'm going to talk about over and over and over again.
Testing, we'll talk about that too, your testing will.
Yes. So.
Yeah, that's a focus.
Right. So item number 7, creating a district culture.
Should we move that to a higher point? So that when we see goal 1 on our board documents, we know that it's achievement gap. Because I have to go back, when we have 11, I have to go back and look at what number each one is.
Right.
When it says which goal this relates to. But, maybe it doesn't need to be number 1, but, that's a major thing with all of us, I think.
I think the 4 and 5 between college and career ready and graduation rate are probably there because the state was putting a very heavy emphasis on that.
Right,
So,
yeah.
and I'm looking at this and I'm saying we've been successful in those areas. I think we need to work on areas where we've been less successful as a district. So, so item number 7, creating a district culture which will support the growth of professional learning communities and be conducive to creating a safe and positive environment for learning, dovetail with the district's current strategic plan. I kind of came out of the superintendent evaluation process when we were talking about using the current strategic plan more. The assessment documents talk about strategic plan, but in reality, this is our strategic plan when you look at it. And I think there needs to be a way to kind of marry those two together. So TEL surveys, advanced accreditation, implementation technology plan, and student voice is not an ideal tool, but it's better than some of the other things that we have. And I think if you look at it with concert with the other metrics there, it will give you a reasonably good picture. So 8 is continued implementation of district facility plan with systemic allocation and prioritization of district needs. So we as a board don't have a formal process for fulfilling district needs. So that's something I'd like to see us try to adopt.
You got a copy of the 5-year plan. You got a copy of the 5-year plan needs list that comes into part of this that you need to look at.
Right. Number 9 is effective communication between board, superintendent, parents, staff, and community. I think I listed all the stakeholders there. So TEL surveys, parent surveys, SBDM minutes, district and school websites, media relations, and also a number of changes to board agendas after they're sent out. I think this board has gotten in a bad habit of publishing agendas, amending them constantly in meetings. I think if there are some things that need to be amended, that's fine. But one of the things we need to portray to the public is that, okay, here's our agenda, here's what we're talking about. Anybody from the public who's coming here can reasonably expect that these are the things we're going to talk about. And we talk about no surprises amongst board members. There shouldn't be any surprises for the community either. So number 10 is continued fiscal responsibility, keeping budget and contingency in line. And number 11, holding district leaders and principals accountable for implementing the above goals. We'll do that via the certified evaluation plan and superintendent evaluation. So any comments or discussion or potential changes? I think
We didn't have any changes on the agenda tonight.
Yes, we did. That's one gold star for us. So, Mr. Christie, or district staff, any comments? You've taken this to your cabinet.
Not full cabinet. We've been with our
executive cabinet.
I don't think there was anything, we talked about anything that
Okay.
had any problem with.
Okay. All right. And hopefully, our district has made a lot of progress over the past few years, and I think this is an important document in moving it forward, and continuing to move things forward, and continuing to ensure that we have an excellent district. So, all right. Other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the board superintendent goals as presented.
I move that we approve the board superintendent goals as presented.
Okay. A motion by Ms. Hicks,
Second.
second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, next up is item number 17, consider approval for board members and superintendent to attend the KSBA Central Regional Meeting October 26th, 2017 at Mercer County Senior High School. Can everybody make it that day? Last year, they had that on the day of the fall of the candidates debate here in Winchester, so nobody went. So,
What's the day of the?
Tuesday. No, wait, I'm in September. Let's say, right, we have a meeting.
it's
It's
usually a
Thursday.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that an all-day event?
No, it's in the evening. It's usually 6 to 8:30.
Oh.
So we get more training hours for that. The idea is you have a smaller meeting. I don't know if you've been to one of these before, but the idea is it's a smaller meeting just within members of our districts. Our district is Fayette County, pretty much the counties that ring. It's Fayette and the counties that ring Fayette County. I don't exactly know how KSB has its map drawn, but it's probably about, I'd say 15 districts. So
And usually the training just covers one, it's a focus on primarily
One
one
item.
topic.
So I don't know what the topic is this year. I haven't checked. the
I saw it,
website.
but
So- Okay. If That's okay with everybody, put that on the calendar.
I don't know what the training is, if it's finance or anything, but I got the thing in on, and it looked like some needed some finance. Do you all want me to talk to Dr. Bob again about doing a
Yes.
finance training here? For any of
That's
your
the only
hours?
thing I'm short, is fine, it's 1 hour.
Yeah, if these guys think.
I'll come.
I've got a lot of KSBA's finance stuff, but I probably get more out of Dr. Bob's finance stuff
Yeah,
than anything else, because it
exactly.
looks at our numbers and it's got a
You're
lot
right,
of
it's real
recommendations
stuff for
that are
us.
specific for our district, so I think it's been very helpful. So,
It just takes him a little while because he has to get KSBA and our credit.
Right.
He has to get approved for that. So.
Okay.
Yes, please.
All right. Next up, would anyone like to hear anything separately off the consent agenda?
Before we get into it, let me just follow up on an issue that came about last month. When we got into the consent agenda last month, I had what I thought was a lively discussion with Mrs. Ellis on some budget issues, and I got some feedback afterwards. Said, Scott, I really thought that was just the tone, not the wording, but the tone was kind of harsh.
Thank you.
I certainly didn't mean for it to be harsh, and I think, as board members, we need to lead, and if we've made a mistake, or if we've unintentionally made a mistake, we need to say we've made a mistake. I mean, in addition to teaching our children about reading and writing, we want them to be good people. And, what one person might perceive to be reasonable, somebody else may not, and so I just want to make sure I publicly said to you that my intention was not to be harsh, and if I came across that way, I apologize. And I have the utmost respect for you, and hopefully we can have lively discussions and disagree, but not be disagreeable. Just wanted to say that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Let's see. On this consent agenda, does anyone want to hear any item off the consent agenda separately? If not, a motion is in order to approve or acknowledge all the following items. Number 18 is consider approval of Campbell Junior High School band trip to see Wicked in Cincinnati, Ohio, October 12, 2017. Number 19, consider approval of Campbell Junior High School cross-country team trip to participate in cross-country meet in Columbia, South Carolina, October 12 through 16, 2017.
Have them stay out of the nightclubs. No, he's not here. Oh, sorry.
Item number 20, consider approval of George Rogers Clark High School junior ROTC trip to Milford, Ohio to compete in junior ROTC radio competition October 21st, 2017. Item number 21 is consider approval of GRC High School FFA trip to Murray State University to participate in course judging November 11th through 16, 2017. Item number 22, consider approval of GRC High School KYA trip to participate in conference in Louisville, Kentucky, November 19th through 21st, 2017. Number 23, consider approval of GRC High School boys basketball trip to participate in Middletown Classic in Louisville, Kentucky, December 27th through 29th, 2017. Number 24, consider approval of George Rogers Park High School FFA trip to Perfect North in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, January 11th, 2018. Number 25, consider approval of Campbell Junior High School 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. for history tour, March 22 through 25, 2018. Number 26, acknowledge school fundraiser requests. Number 27, acknowledge booster support club agreements for 2017-2018. Number 28, acknowledge booster club support fundraisers. Number 29, acknowledge community eligibility program report. Number 30, approval of employee leave of absence. Number 31, acknowledge the notice of personnel action report. Number 32, acknowledge Clark County Clerk's motor vehicle tax report. 33, acknowledge the Clark County Sheriff's report. Item 34, acknowledge the monthly financial report. Item 36, acknowledge the general fund budget summary report. Item 36, acknowledge the contingency budget report. And number 37, acknowledge the balance sheet report. The motion is in order to approve or acknowledge those items.
I move that we approve or acknowledge items 18 through 38, through 37 as presented.
Motion by Ms. Hicks,
Second.
second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You had your chance to pull one item off the consent agenda.
I wasn't going to pull it off.
So,
Could I ask a question just as an aside?
Sure.
I think there was some of the club support agreements we don't have back in yet. When we get those in, we'll have a chance to review those again. Okay, I should have gotten clarification on that. Sorry about that. My vote is an aye on that, by the way.
all right, item number 38 is authorized payment of salaries and accounts payable.
I move that we pay salaries and accounts payable.
Motion by Ms. Hicks.
Second.
Second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Motion is in order to return to closed session for discussion of proposed and pending litigation against or on behalf of the public agency, repair S 61.810, subsection 1, subsection C.
And I make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Ritchie.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. The board is in closed session at 8:36 p.m. There'll be a short break.